Let me first say that I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter, so I'm speaking from somebody who supports the new progressive revolution. But here's the deal. More than a Bernie Sanders supporter, I'm a supporter of democracy. What do I mean by that? The majority rules. Of course, there are exceptions to that where it comes to the Bill of Rights or our inalienable rights. That said, I think it's important for Bernie Sanders supporters to know something. First of all, the election is not over. What the media is speaking about, whereas they're saying that it's almost impossible for Bernie Sanders to win, is not true at all. Half of the election is complete, but we must realize one thing. Just as in the beginning, Hillary Clinton overperformed, so can Bernie overperform in going forward. But it's very important that folks realize one thing, and that is Bernie Sanders supporters sitting down behind a computer screen, Bernie Sanders supporters talking among each other isn't going to do the trick. You know, with all the young folk and not so young folk who believe 100% in social media, I want to give an important piece of information on social media. Social media attempts to keep like minds together. So in other words, what it does is it creates a whole lot of factions, a whole lot of semi-factions. And if you are within that world, you believe that that world becomes your reality and you don't externalize the things that needs to be externalized. As an example, there are many more votes that so far Hillary has gotten. Many may believe, well, there are places where there were shenanigans, etc., etc., etc. That's true. But the reality is Hillary has a whole lot more votes than Bernie. What does that really mean? That means that the folks who support Bernie, the folks who believe that the policies that Bernie supports are better. I am included in that group that believes that the middle class, the poor, unless these policies are effected, that we continue our decline. It is our responsibility to make the case. It is our responsibility not to continue to stay around folks of like mind, not to stay around our circle within social media, but to expand that circle. Because it's not the people who think like us that we have to get out there to vote. It's not the people who think like us that we have to convince that the fear the plutocracy puts in them, the fear that Hillary Clinton puts in them, the fear that Donald Trump and everybody else put in them can be realized. We are the ones who have to go out there and make the case. Remember, America suffers from a very bad problem, and that is self-esteem. The vast majority of Americans have a self-esteem problem. They believe that stockbroker earned that money or somehow is better than they are. They believe that the titans of finance, the people who really can do nothing while everybody else works and produce, somehow those others are worth more. It is our job to really put into perspective that every single American worker, everybody that produced something, is a part of this economy, and that none of these multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires have really earned what they have. They have not earned it. We all collectively together is what have allowed them to have it. But we have to promote that message in a fashion that those people that are scared to accept or to realize their worth will go out there and start voting in their interests. So I have two messages to end here. One, Bernie Sanders still has a chance, which means a move to a more progressive America is possible. It is not at all possible unless those people who support this progressive agenda, this revolution, get out of their comfort zone as well, get out of get out of thinking or get out of that sphere of people who think like them and address and talk with respect to others and try to give them a message that they can absorb. Try to tell the message in a form that they can absorb and understand so that you can convince them that the Bernie Sanders policies is better for them than a Trump or a Clinton. Unless you can do that, unless we can do that, there isn't another option. And secondly, if we fail at making the case for a Bernie type revolution, and I hate to use Bernie the person, because this movement supposed to be much more than Bernie. It actually should be the continuation of what Occupy should have been. That's what this notion or this revolution is supposed to be. If in the 2016 election we fail, the reality is, yes, we must choose the next best option, the least of two evils. I know a lot of people would get on my case for making that statement. I'll just come out straight and say, if we cannot get Bernie this time, I will be voting for the next best person, or the least evil person that is, and we all know who that is. I care too much about those who would actually suffer under a Republican administration. I care too much. I know that a Republican administration would be a clear and present danger for lower middle class America and for the poor. I know that they will be a clear and present danger for our social structure, if you will, women's rights and the rights of many others. I know they would be a detriment because they will hold put a whole lot of folk on the Supreme Court that for a long time will shape or will affect a bad shaping of the policies of the United States. So there are two things here, folks. You got to go out there. You got to go out there and do your job. All of us who support this revolution, if you will, and try to convince folks, not those of like minds, try to convince those people who think differently than we do. Respectfully convince them that there is a better way. If we fail at it this time, we vote for the next best option and we continue to fight. The problem that we have is many times we think these things are supposed to be done at election times and then we go on with life. That's not how a revolution is successful. One of the successes of the right is that they are relentless. They continue to work. They continue to work at the county level, at the state level, at the city level, at every level, while we sit back, accept, and don't vote because we're so mad, we're so upset. We have to all grow up and stay in the fight. And when we win, instead of sitting back, protect the gains and move on with further gains. Salud, amigos. We know what we have to do.